Israel's army radio says the number of people killed in Iran's latest barrage of strikes has risen to 8. Dozens more have been injured after multiple missiles made it past Israel's Iron Dome air defences. Loud explosions were heard in multiple cities, including Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Fires have been seen at sites near the port city of Haifa, including the main power plant. Search and rescue efforts are underway. Over to our Tel Aviv and DW correspondent Tania Krämer. More deadly overnight strikes. Tell us about what you're seeing and hearing.
Yeah, I'm right here in the center of Tel Aviv. There was also a hit, and you can see that here right behind me in this area. Right now, what's happening, a lot of people who live here and who were maybe out in their shelters or had left, they're trying to get back into their flats to see what they can salvage. It's quite a scene of destruction here. We also heard from the US ambassador in Israel that the US consulate building or some parts of it were slightly damaged. Now, this is what we could also hear late last night. We're about 10 minutes from here in a shelter with other people when you heard a massive hit. And these are the missiles from Iran that are actually evading Israel's defense shield. Now, most of them are intercepted, but what we are seeing here is that some of them do impact across the country with these deadly results. And I think many people do realize here, how deadly and lethal and how much damage these missiles leave behind. What a trail of devastation. It's not just usually one building, but it's then all across the street and the neighborhood, what we've been seeing over the past 3 days in other areas as well. This is different to what people have experienced here in past conflicts with Hamas, rockets from Gaza, with missiles or rockets from Yemen or from the north, from the Iran-backed Hezbollah in southern Lebanon.
Tania, what does it mean for residents with the state of emergency having been extended in Israel?
Yeah, the state of emergency has been extended until the end of the month at least. So that means, the country is basically shut down. This means only essential workplaces can open. What is very striking is, the airport is closed. So we met a lot of people here also who are stranded. Basically, they can't leave the country, but also many Israelis abroad are also stranded. They can't come back except through the land borders, but it's not possible for everyone to travel through there. So, this impacts everything. It slows down everything. We're seeing this morning. Tel Aviv, a usually very bustling and very busy city. It's very quiet at times, especially also in the evenings, in the mornings. People have to wake up at night. They get the alerts on their phone, go near a shelter, then later an alert. To say you have to go now into the shelter, so you don't sleep half of the night. And this has been just going on now for 3 days. But people are quite supportive of this. Attack, what the Israeli government described as preemptive strikes on Iran. But I think, people don't know how long this will take, and, there's a sense here that this will not end anytime soon.
Is there some sort of overall aim that the Israeli leadership is taking?
Well, we've been hearing from the military, first of all, that they say, there have been the aircraft that is attacking Iran has been non-stop in the air since this operation started before the weekend. They also said, the chief of staff, Zamir, said we will intensify the strikes. This has been repeated as well by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who said, there's no letdown at the moment of this. Seems to be no de-escalation of all of this. We're hearing from military officials that they have an array of targets still they want to get to. For example, they said the military said or claimed they have struck a command center of the Al-Quds forces in Tehran. They're also hunting missiles, as they put it, like surface-to-surface missiles. These are the ballistic missiles that are launched at Israel to make sure not all of them can be launched. So there seems to be no, de-escalation strategy country at the moment. It is just ongoing, and it's just really feeling this is the first days of this operation.
Tania Krämer on the ground in Tel Aviv there. Thank you. René Wildangel is an historian and Middle East expert. How do you see this conflict unfolding?
Well, we've just heard that there's a huge potential for escalation right now, and we've also seen civilians, because they are ultimately the ones who are suffering from this war. And we have very unclear goals stated by the Israeli government, because when the attack started, it was sold as an attack on the Iranian nuclear program. Ever since, Netanyahu has talked about destruction of the Iranian military sector, ballistic missile sector, as well as yesterday on Fox News, he talked about regime change. So we are also talking about a very unclear political picture here. And there is a huge potential for escalation. What we need now is an urgent effort by the international community, by the European Union, by Germany, to go back to diplomacy, because everything else, we will see the same playbook that we have seen in Gaza, that we've seen in Lebanon, huge civilian loss, and this will do no good for the further political perspective. And also it will not serve the goal to ultimately ensure that Iran will not have a military nuclear program. This will not be assured by this attack.
Well, when it comes to diplomacy, how credible is Iran's offer to negotiate if Israel stops attacking?
Well, I don't think that this Iranian regime in general is very credible, but you have to give them that they have been negotiating. When this attack started, there was the 6th round of the US-Iranian talks, and I have to say, when the Iranian government spokesperson says here, we were negotiating, they are right. Now, were they negotiating in good faith? That's another question. We had an IAEA report that just mentioned that Iran was not complying with its commitments towards ensuring that Iran is not building a military capability with its nuclear program. And there were serious doubts here. But again, there was diplomacy going on. And I think that's still the right way. This war should be stopped, because most experts agree that you cannot stop this nuclear program with military attacks. And there are many people that are worried now, if this war will ever end. The lesson for Iran will be that they will seek they will seek a nuclear bomb, because apparently it might be the only thing that protects them against further attacks. And that's pretty much the lesson from the North Korea situation.
What do you make of the unprecedented damage being inflicted by both sides on both sides?
Well, again, I think everybody who's watching this is very worried. There's huge potential for escalation. Yes, there have been some military successes on the Israeli side when they are targeting military sites, but some of those military sites, and they also attack the energy facilities, are located in densely populated civilian areas in the capital, Tehran. So I think those unprecedented figures that we've seen, they are now rising. And that's a huge danger, and this needs to stop.
And also the damage Iran is inflicting on Israel?
Yes, this has been an illegal attack on Iran, according to international law. I think this also needs to be spelled out very clearly. I haven't heard this a lot from German leaders, from European leaders. They talked about Israel's right to defend itself. Every country, according to the UN Charter, has the right to defend itself. But this was an Israeli attack on Iran. And I think this has to be spelled out very clearly. On the other hand, the Iranian attacks on Israel, when they are targeting and hitting civilians, they're also illegal. So again, this is a breach of international law. This is a very dangerous situation. And I think every international leader talking about this should underline that this needs to stop. There's no good coming out of this for the security of the Middle East. There's a huge potential for escalation. Is everything solved when we have a ceasefire? No. The issue of the Iranian nuclear program has been going on for 25 years. In 2015, we had the GPCAO, the diplomatic attempt to constrain this program. And I think we need to get back to a situation where we talk about it diplomatically together with the Europeans, not depending on President Trump's rather erratic approach, who one day says we want to negotiate, and on the other hand, gives a green light to Prime Minister Netanyahu to attack Iran.
You heard it from Middle East expert René Wildangel. Thank you very much for your analysis.
Thank you.
Kamran Matin is a senior lecturer on international politics at the University of Sussex. He joins us live from Brighton in the UK. Thanks for your time. What's your take on how the conflict between Israel and Iran is developing right now?
Yes, thanks for having me. So this conflict has been in the making for at least 2 decades, in fact. And the latest round of negotiations, which your package also referred to, was due to take place yesterday, but it was cancelled. But prior to that, Witkoff, Trump's envoy regarding these negotiations, had sent Iranians a letter to which Iran did not submit a formal reply, but Iranian officials had said that the conditions in that letter is unacceptable to them. I think this was the background to the decision by Israelis to attack and for Trump to acknowledge it, largely because the two sides had red lines which were quite far from each other. Iran did not accept any deal which included the cessation of enrichment on Iranian soil, and that was precisely what the American side wanted, although in a gradual way. So I think this is the run-up to the conflict. I mean, Israel has clearly prepared for this for a long time, and given the price they are at the moment paying, it's unlikely they would stop the attacks until they reach some of their objectives in terms of destruction of Iranian nuclear and missile facilities. And in the meantime, it may well be that the more Israeli casualties, the more they might pressure United States to join in order to attack the more kind of inaccessible nuclear facilities like Fordo, which is deep underground under a mountain near Tehran. On the other hand, Iran has also responded, as we know. Unfortunately, preparation for the protection of civilians in Iran is extremely poor, and lots of casualties have happened, and people are obviously terrified because of Israeli record of fighting in Gaza and all the war crimes that international institutions have pointed out in relation to that conflict.
Well, the attacks continue, but are we getting a clearer picture of what sort of damage has been done to Iran's nuclear capabilities when it comes to personnel, facilities, etc.?
Yes, in the first 24 hours, the Israelis inflicted significant blows to Iran's nuclear facilities as well as air defense systems. Almost entire top echelon of Iran's senior IRGC commanders were taken out. Senior intelligence officials have been taken out. Most of the overground facilities in Natanz and Isfahan have been destroyed. These are the key nuclear facilities. At the moment, it seems that Israel is trying to attack Fordo, which, as I mentioned, is deep underground, as well as they are trying to attack the missile launchers, which are obviously, targeting Israel, usually at night. The thing is that Israel has been able to establish pretty much uncontested air superiority. Iranian skies are open to Israeli planes. So I think calculation in Israel is that as this situation continues, they can degrade Iranian missile capability, especially because last year's attack by Israel destroyed some of the factories where some parts of these missiles were manufactured. So the thinking goes that Iran is unable to produce new missiles. And the stock of missiles Iran has is around 2,000 by some estimates, which means if Iran has to fire a lot of missiles to some of them so that some of them can get through Israeli defense, within 2-3 weeks, they might run out of missiles, and then Israel will have even more upper hand in the conflict.
Okay, so this all sounds like a very dynamic situation. When it comes to a blow to Iran's nuclear capabilities, would you also say these attacks have been a blow to the regime?
Well, I think the two are closely linked in some ways, because the Islamic Republic has so closely tied its internal and external legitimacy and external deterrence to the nuclear project as well as the missile project. What is, I think, particularly damaging to Iranian government is that its sheer incapacity to protect Iranian people from a conflict which everybody expected to take place at some point, unless a deal was made, and the deal was not made, as I mentioned, because the positions of the two sides were very far from each other. But apart from that lack of legitimacy because of inability to defend and protect people, there is also just the sheer number of Iranian senior officials and leaders who have been taken out. Many of the key institutions of Iranian state seem to be being led at the moment by much more junior characters. And of course, you and your viewers have heard that apparently Donald Trump vetoed Israel's decision to assassinate Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. So that might actually be reversed if the conflict continues. And in the absence of Khamenei, paradoxically, there will be both possibility for worsening of the conflict, but also for de-escalation, because a new leader in Iran could kind of open a new chapter in relation with the West and more easily blame the past problems on the deceased leader. But also the same situation can lead to a kind of hardening of position of the regime. But from what we hear from Netanyahu and Israeli government, they clearly think that Iranian state, because of the economic circumstances, because of corruption, because of repression on the people, and so on and so forth, is internally fragile. The danger they are running is that by targeting civilians, they might actually force some people actually behind the regime, people who in the normal times may not have supported the Iranian regime.
So you're saying these attacks by Israel could backfire on Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, having called on the Iranians to rise up. I mean, it's a tricky situation, isn't it? These people would be putting their lives at risk, and the attacks have already had a high civilian toll, we're told. So where does this all leave the people of Iran?
Yes, I mean, the thing is, within Iran, the situation is different from region to region. Unfortunately, Islamic Republic has repressed over decades all the popular associations, parties, organizations, and so on. So people are disorganized. So even if they might be very angry at the regime, they may not be able to, mount effective protest against the regime. But this situation is different in some other parts of Iran. For example, in Kurdistan, we have a much more organized population. There are Kurdish political parties which may, help to mobilize people if the central government's grip on the region is loosened because of these military attacks and so on. But in any case, I think as far as Israel is concerned, their objective is to delay the threat of Iran's nuclear program and its missile project. So I think everybody agrees that it's difficult to destroy these projects from the air, but it can be put back by at least a year or two. And maybe Netanyahu hopes that this gives them a time to further coordinate with the Americans, or Americans might move in at some point. In any case, I mean, many conflict of this kind involves a degree of risk-taking and, if you like, gambling. So Netanyahu is gambling on the fact that the regime might just fall apart because of its sheer weakness. But this is just one possibility among others. It's not, certain that this will be the case.
Really interesting analysis there from Kamran Matin, Senior Lecturer on International Politics, University of Sussex. Thank you very much for being on DW.
Thank you.